Northern Roots is a project to develop the UK's largest urban farm on post-industrial wasteland in Oldham, Greater Manchester. And in this episode, I chat with the 3 members of the Northern Roots team who are responsible for delivering Beautiful Oldham. Why not? We discuss how this unique project started, what it hopes to achieve, and how visionary projects like this can open up a Pandora's box of questions around heritage, history, immigration, environment, social justice, and empire. My name's Matt Dean, and welcome to My Northern Roots.
I'm Kimo Morrison. I'm the Communications, Arts and Engagement Lead for Northern Roots. I come from a background in film and TV, so I love creativity, I love people, but I really wanted to work in a space where there's an opportunity to make real impact, because quite often we're in spaces where, you know, it's about ego, it's about hierarchy, it's about me as an artist or a creative or whatever. This was an opportunity, to make real impact and to work with incredibly diverse and different people, which, you know, is very important to me. Northern Roots, which is a project to take 160 acres of what we think of as underutilised land, which falls from Alexandra Park all the way down to Park Bridge and beyond. It's a project to create what will be the UK's largest urban farm and eco park, but it's so much more than that. It's about arts and culture, sport and recreation. It's about bringing economic, health and well-being and environmental and social benefits to the people of Oldham, residents, local communities. But also the long-term vision is to create a really unique community hub and a visitor destination, which kind of pulls people into the borough, drives footfall, drives spend, you know, kind of builds. It's all about local wealth building and contributing to that and to placemaking. It came about through Oldham Council, who are actually in many ways very progressive. The idea for the project originated about 7 years ago, so we're 7 years into this project. It's a very challenging, very complex project. And basically, they looked at this 160 acres, which was fly-tipped, graffitied, all kinds of other behaviours, undesirable behaviours happening on the site, and asked themselves, you know, how they could bring it into productive use. So Northern Roots is, you know, hopefully an answer to that question. At the heart of the Northern Roots project, it's all about putting communities in the driving seat. And it's very easy to say that out loud, but actually doing that is something, it's very different actually doing that and not playing lip service to it. So, you know, we've done a lot of consultation. We've had people working with us. So various ways that we've involved and celebrated local people. But Anna, who's our CEO, felt that we needed to do a project that actually recruited and paid people to come and work, you know, over a length of time to really enable that. So she applied to the National Lottery Heritage Fund with this really gorgeous idea, which I know Rebecca and Sarah will build on, celebrating this incredible woman, Mary Higgs, the Beautiful Oldham Society, you know, Beautiful Oldham, why not?
I'm Sarah Hardacre and I'm a producer at Northern Roots. My time with Northern Roots fits in definitely with the timeline of the community champions as well. So within my first 48 hours of joining Northern Roots, I was there interviewing, met you. So we all started together and I think we're all on the same journey in that sense.
I'm Rebecca May and I'm the project manager for the Beautiful Oldham Why Not project at Northern Roots.
What was it like, Rebecca, interviewing everybody for the roles, and what were your expectations going into it, and how were they met or exceeded or not met or whatever?
That's a good question. I think they were exceeded actually, because I knew straight away when I saw this project it was unique. I had never seen a project sort of structured in that way before. For example, paid community champion roles, which is really important. It's something that had started to be raised in other projects I'd worked on. So to actually see a project that realised this and put funding in place to pay community champions, I was really drawn to that aspect of it. I was only involved in some of the interviews. We were all sort of involved in the interviews of community champions in some way. So I didn't get to interview everyone. But I was absolutely blown away, by the people that came through the door. They were so passionate about Oldham. They were so passionate about the project and knowledgeable about the area. And were bringing so much experience and skills of their own to it. I just thought, this is a dream. We've got these amazing people on board. And I just couldn't wait to get started.
It's very diverse, isn't it?
Incredibly so.
In terms of backgrounds, abilities, experience, skills, personalities. There's people there that have a perspective that you don't.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time when you're going around the room, and that's what I'm finding really interesting about it.
Yeah, very much so, and I think, to sort of, it's absolutely representative of the area and of Oldham, so to get those people in the room, come into the room, want to really be part of this project, it's been a pleasure really, and it has exceeded my expectations because we didn't know the journey we would go on. This is a co-create sort of participatory type project. So we start, really, the foundations are people and place. And we start with those ideas and we percolate those ideas and we really allow that freedom to express those ideas as well. That's the whole process. It's about making sure people feel comfortable and able to really speak their minds and connect to themselves, and really explore the project, the ideas of the project, the heritage and the stories behind Northern Roots, and then grow those ideas. And I think that has definitely been part of the process.
It is so exciting because we don't know what's going to happen in those sessions when we come into them. And we can kind of put down the structure of, in this session, we are going to look at these certain things. And, we've got those certain areas of sports and recreation, culture and communities. But we don't know what ideas are going to come out. So it's so exciting when we hear things, the room buzzing with potential and possibility. And it's also mind-blowing as well, just how creative and how passionate people really are and how much this has been taken to heart by people.
I think it's a bit of a surprise to some of the people in the group that all this stuff's going on, like the university, the branding. It's this there's like a gap between where it's at now in terms of like this little plot of land, like the organised, like the Northern Roots, the cabin, and it's very small, the urban farm, and the piece of land is massive. And then you've got institutions like Salford University and professional branding organisers. It's like it's 7 years in, so we're not at the start of it by any means, but we're certainly at the start of a new phase of it, aren't we? And you can feel the potential scale of it is huge.
And I think that's a really interesting point, Matt, because we are basically a muddy field with a cabin in it and a couple of polytunnels.
Yeah.
But actually, this year we're going to start the capital build phase. So within a couple of years, with a fair wind, all being well, we're going to get the most beautiful visitor centre, which will have exhibition spaces, performance spaces. It will have a cafe, it will have a shop. Outside, we'll have another 4 acres of urban farm. We'll have really beautiful play. We'll have an outdoor amphitheatre. So we are going to move very quickly in the next 18 months to actually being a visitor destination with buildings. It's also crucial that we really retain and nurture this local involvement, which is one of the other kind of drivers behind Beautiful Oldham Why Not project, because we cannot lose sight of the fact that this is for, we're creating it for and with local people. Yes, it will be a visitor destination, but if it doesn't speak to local communities and make sense to them and be somewhere that they're proud of, that they want to go to, that they want to work at, or they want to pitch a creative idea, then we will have failed.
How easy is it to get local people excited and involved in the project?
It's really interesting because on the one hand, we talk about the vision that's coming down the line and it's, very ambitious, but we're not there yet. We will be in a couple of years. We'll have that kind of first, the visitor centre, etc. So I think it will become much more tangible to people and they'll kind of go, oh, I get this, I see this. But if you're talking about an idea, it's very hard to kind of get people to kind of latch on to what that is. So that's a long way of saying, there are many challenges, but we keep trying to do it in, engaging local people, consulting in a number of really innovative, creative ways.
I reckon there's a lot of people like me who were aware of it and we're sort of keeping an eye on it if you know what I mean. Like, that's certainly what I was doing. And when I saw the community champion post on Instagram, that's when it kind of it's hooked into me.
Yeah.
And now I'm involved in it, and now I see the value of it and I want to get involved in it. But what's it like dealing with people in Oldham? And I'm not going to make that a leading question. I've got my own sort of views on it, but like, how have you found it? I'm sure it varies, but what's your perception been like?
Well, I mean, why don't I start off that conversation by saying that I think Oldham is a really incredible place. I love its multiculturalism, its diversity. I find there's a lot of creativity and culture here, a lot of really interesting people and organisations doing really interesting things. So there's a lot of energy here and a lot of goodwill. And I think, overall, Northern Roots as a project, as an idea, it has a real kind of groundswell of support. It's never easy, is it, kind of bringing people on a journey with you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Beautiful Oldham Why Not project is essentially a heritage project, and it comes from something that happened in Oldham. Mary Higgs proposed the idea through a letter to the Oldham Chronicle. Beautiful Oldham. Why not? Why can Oldham not be beautiful? And of course, this was at a time when the mills were prevalent, the skies may have been greyer and more kind of buildings soot-stained, and people didn't have access to green spaces. Framing that in kind of modern day Oldham, we've got kind of town centre deprivation, town centre kind of retail in decline. So it's kind of similar sort of issues for a modern day, and we're just posing that question again. Why not? Why can Oldham not be beautiful? We think it can. And re-enlivening some of that history, of that passion and feeling from community champions like Mary Higgs and some of her colleagues that set up the Beautiful Oldham Society, and getting people together and setting up those ideas again.
I mean, what do you think, Matt?
Well,
Swing it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I know what people from Oldham are like. They're friendly and they'll talk to you and they'll get engaged. They'll also tell you what they think, which will either be a good or bad or whatever. They'll be honest with you. They're also quite cynical sometimes when it comes to Oldham and it comes to getting things off the ground. So that was kind of like how I wanted to ask you what it was like. Anything that's related to the council tends to be treated quite negatively.
I mean, I would say that it's very much a partnership. Northern Roots as a project is very much a partnership between Oldham Council and Northern Roots for Charity, and they're kind of intertwined. Kudos to Oldham Council. The idea for this project came from them. And I think there's a real desire to sort of empower and make people's lives better and create opportunities for people. And actually, what I hear, I mean, I don't live in Oldham, but what I hear is that there's a huge amount of town centre development coming down the line. We're going to have amazing performance spaces, etc. Northern Roots is part of that whole kind of transformation of place, kind of elevating and lifting Oldham up and creating crucial opportunities, particularly economic ones. Because actually, to Sarah's point, when Mary Higgs, our original community champion, was alive, and she wrote to the Oldham Chronicle in 1901, so 125 odd years ago, saying, asking Beautiful Oldham why not. We're already into a period of post-industrial decline, and that continued through the 20th century. And Oldham is one of the towns in Manchester that's, in some senses, it's been left behind a little bit. Industry has fallen away. Nothing has really replaced it. It's kind of finding its place.
Undoubtedly.
So you can either be a cynic, my very personal view, you can either be a cynic, and poo-poo everything, or you can kind of put your money where your mouth is and try and make things better.
I agree completely with that sentiment. I'm just aware of that's not the way everybody in the town thinks.
Sure.
And I don't have an axe to grind with the council. It's like any council. They do good things, they do bad things. But like the Northern Roots project and getting what it is, like you said, being the brainchild of the council itself is fantastic. And Oldham needs something like this desperately, I think, something it can be really proud of. And I think my hope is that it will spread out throughout the town with this. And like you said, there is the stuff happening in the town centre, and Beautiful Oldham, why not? And like you said before, Sarah, it has come full circle, like through a time where I think we've bottomed out as a town. I think we've reached as low as we're going to go in this kind of era. And our future is going to be a lot better. And I think that the synergy of this project and that rise is it's going to be like a good sort of example, a good sort of metaphor for the rise of the town, and hopefully the environment is going to play a big role in that, because we're in my studio, which is on the 3rd floor of a mill. First thing we do when we come in here, everyone, because we look out the window, we look at the views and we look at the countryside around and we look at everything, and we're in a beautiful part of the country, aren't we? And in order to get this industrial landscape, we had to destroy the environment, and now I feel like we've got to sort of like pay something back and regrow it and manage it a lot more responsibly than we did in the past. It's like we were talking about before about the Northern Roots project being quite small at the minute, but it can go so many different ways and do so many different positive things. And that's why for me, getting involved in it and learning more about it has been really exciting. And then meeting the people that are responsible, the creativity and the passion and like the natural health service stuff, I think that's fantastic. There's loads of stuff going on. I just think this could be a real, and I know that you want this project to be something of a pilot and an inspiration to other projects around the country, and I can't see how that is going to fail. Like, it's 100% going to be an inspiration, I'm sure. It's almost like there's too much to talk about. That's why I think we need to do this podcast over a series of months, so that we can just sort of like unfold it as it goes. But what's next? So we're in January. What's next, Rebecca? What's the plan for the coming months?
Our plan now is we actually have quite a lot to do, because all of those sort of that period of research and development and growth and co-creation as a team, as a group of community champions, and all of those ideas, we've all gone on individual journeys in those couple of months before Christmas, and we've come together in our co-create session, and we've come out of all these amazing ideas connected to heritage and storytelling and community and creativity. And they're all part of that heritage project and Beautiful Oldham, why not? And we've all been inspired. I think back to that induction day when we got that map out, and that the feeling in the room when we got that map out with all of those names and all of those, and there was a lot of, people didn't know, they didn't know there was a mill on the site. I didn't know, so we were all learning in that room, and I could tell straight away we all had that real source of inspiration, and it was heritage, and it was history, and it was Northern Roots, and it was the site, and it became our starting point. So actually, when I think back, I'm like, this was the perfect way to start a project like this, to start with heritage and history, because we all connected, even if we weren't necessarily, part of that original story. So we've put in this amazing groundwork, we all have as individuals and as a team, and now we're in that period where we actually start to make that happen. And that's got lots of threads running through it. We've got our social prescribing, and we'll start to link into some of the work they do as well. We've got the Natural Health Service. We've got our events. So we've got Illuminate, which will start to be involved in and really learn through that event as well. And that will feed into the Beautiful Oldham Why Not Festival. We're in production, so we'll start to grow these ideas and turn them into real activities and events. And importantly, we're going to start to really reach out and connect with communities. So we're already doing bits of that through the project, but now we're going to sort of enter that phase where we reach into our communities and start to grow projects with them. And we've got our evaluation and monitoring with Salford University, so we're really reaching into communities. We're not just growing and creating events with them, but we're also starting to really ask those questions, those important questions about Northern Roots. So we've got lots to do in these next few months,
It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah. I'm sort of going into all the detail there, so I'm sorry about that. But there's lots to do, and it sort of comes, it's sort of the end of it will be the Beautiful Oldham Why Not Festival, which we've all worked hard to build.
Yeah.
And that will feel really celebratory, because Sarah's going to have a big hand in producing that. But that's all about getting more people down to Northern Roots to find out more about the project, about long-term vision, but just to really enjoy, celebrate, connect, come together, be surprised, get creative.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to most is, working with the community champions to make their ideas real. And see that celebration. Yeah,
I think what I like about what I'm doing in sort of like documenting it in this format of a podcast is all these things are like theoretical, aren't they, at the beginning? So we're going to do this, and we're going to engage the community, and we're going to hire these community champions, and it's all based on the hope that it works, and you monitor and you evaluate and do all this kind of, so it's going to be great, because I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to be really great to sort of have this series to listen to where things have happened and people have got engaged, and what's great about it is it's an ongoing story. It just keeps going. We've already discussed how there's different phases to this project, but it's never, so long as the Northern Roots project and the land is there, there's always going to be potential for people to use it, come up with ideas, and it's just become take on a life of its own ultimately.
It's brilliant to have somebody like you involved in this project, going back to our earlier conversation about, the kind of diversity of people that we've recruited, which we are all quite gobsmacked by, because when you do a project like this, Rebecca was saying, it's about co-creation. You kind of take a deep breath, and because the whole point of co-creation is that you don't know what is going to happen, and you're not prescribing it. So it's a real act of faith, which I think as creative people, we're always very comfortable with that, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Like naturally, and it's kind of exciting. But it's risky, it's risk-taking. And what normally happens is, you write project description, you apply for funding, and this, and this, and this is going to happen, and this is the way it's going to be. So although we have a very clear set of outcomes, we don't know the specifics. We have to be very adaptable, very flexible, very creative. And we didn't know who we'd get in the room. So then somebody like you pops up, and with your skill set, this is such a valuable record for the project, and actually for our funder, National Lottery Heritage Fund. We can share this with them afterwards. It will make an amazing case study. So so thank you very much for doing it. Well, and like you say, lots of opportunity going forwards for
100%
taking it forwards.
Yeah, and I think the one with my Oldham hat on, and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, not just with Northern Roots, but in general, is there are great, like you said, there are great people doing great things in Oldham, for people in Oldham, for the environment in Oldham, all that kind of stuff. And I really want to get them to talk about it and people to listen to it, because it's important. And I think, like you said about us being left behind, one of the reasons for that is I think we've been very down on ourselves for some reason, and we've also not been very good at shouting about what we're doing well. Because there's always been good stuff going on, and Northern Roots is one of those things that is a real positive. And so it's like Alexandra Park. It's just a fantastic park. It's so beautiful, and it's such a great place to be. But I almost feel like it's still a bit of a hidden gem, even though it's the most famous park in the town. It's the kind of place that you should come to if you live a bit further away, just to have a walk around. So Northern Roots will be that place. It'll have a positive effect on the park and hopefully on the town. In the town centre, because it's so close to the town centre, which again is another brilliant thing about it.
I agree entirely. I think how you tell the story about what is happening in a town or a place is so important, because it shapes people's perception, both people living within a town, but also, people from further afield. Are they likely to come or not? So we are very conscious at Northern Roots of the story we tell about the project, about really going out bold and celebratory, and that's what you need to change a place. And I think a lot of that work is being done now around placemaking in Oldham. There's a kind of big agenda about it, kind of changing that somewhat negative narrative.
I think places need an identity. They need like people, really. You need an identity. You need a reason for being. Because if you don't have that, then you struggle. And Oldham lost its identity a long, long time ago. It's never had a reason for being for a long time. I mean, you live in Salford, don't you? And like Salford...
Actually, I live in Bury.
Oh, you live in Bury. But, I mean, obviously Salford and Oldham are a bit different. But now Media City and Salford is identified with, has an identity. And it's obviously a lot of money's going into it. Salford was rough for a long time.
Actually, I have to interject, because I worked on both bringing the BBC out of London to the Quays and that whole transformation project. I worked with the leadership team that did that. And then I went to work on RHS Garden Bridgewater, another really big transformation project. It's lovely down there, Salford really had a vision for what it wanted Salford to be. And similarly to Oldham, post-industrial, the Quays, the deprivation, same story, from all over the north. We've all talked about this before, but it really got its act together.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen, does it?
Yeah,
it
really got its act together, and it said, "This is where we're going. We want to have, big digital TV radio centre.
Yeah,
the biggest one outside of London or in, kind of in Europe.
Yeah.
We want to transform these places. RHS, they were, wooed to come up to Salford. I mean, it's incredible. The transformation of a 19th century walled garden right in these kind of the mean streets of Salford. So these things can happen, but they need vision. That's why we all need to stay on the course.
Absolutely.
And they need projects like this because we are planting the seeds.
Yeah.
And that's what we mean by that. That story that Kimo talks about, this is a common story for every northern town.
Yeah.
They've all been through this same process. No wonder that sort of idea of your future has maybe been, it's been stamped down, and people feel that the positivity has been lost. But actually, if you look at northern towns, especially the boroughs around Manchester, they're all going through huge transformations. The cultural funding has shifted. It's much more focused now on towns and people and community. So these transformation projects are taking part in all the boroughs, really, in their own way. They're finding their identity. So I suppose going back to what Kimo said and what you said, it's which side am I on? Am I going to be part of this big change? And the positivity of it, and that this money is going back in, and these changes are happening, and that's where I want to be. I feel really proud to be in a northern town that's going through this shift and this change, and is transforming itself. After this incredible journey it's been on from riches and growth through industrial revolution, through decline, and then back up again. And it's finding your place and where you want to be. And I think the communities are coming back round to that way of thinking as well. Most do. Most are really proud of Oldham and where it's going, and you're always going to get individuals that are part of that old story, it's in decline, but we're on the up.
You need anchor institutions, anchor organisations. Yeah. So the example of the BBC coming out of London to Salford Quays and kind of going, we're committing to this kind of derelict wasteland on the quays, that then creates, it kind of draws in everyone, all the little satellite, digital companies, the office space, the kind of retail. I mean, obviously, Northern Roots is a different proposition to the BBC, but it's the same idea. It's about, in Oldham, we've got these incredible organisations. We've got Gallery Oldham, got very creative cultural community. We've got some lead businesses, but Northern Roots will be an anchor institution. It's something that helps to put this newly envisaged Oldham sort of on the map.
Northern Roots is obviously, has a double meaning, doesn't it? Our family roots, our ancestral roots being in the north, and nature, trees, and the environment. Obviously, this piece of land is a green space, but it had the industry on it. It was used as a tip. It wasn't always a beautiful space like it is now, and this heritage connection of heritage, environment, people. There's a different appetite for history now than there was, an understanding why is Oldham here and what are the reasons for it and the legacy of it, and connecting to the history. I'm listening to a podcast called Empire at the minute, which is about the British Empire. All these things, like the reason that town like this, it's all, there are historical reasons for it, and the reasons why we've got so many immigrants from Pakistan, Bangladesh and places like that is because of the empire, and a much more truthful assessment of why we are here and what our issues are and why our issues are and all that. And, with the Queen's just died and the King, and you've got the monarchy. What I love about this project is you can spin off in so many different directions about so many relevant topical issues, some political, some historical, some environmental, some, societal, cultural, whatever. And we can have those discussions off the back, like you said, because this is the anchor. And it doesn't necessarily mean to be all those things. But when you start looking into it, like we're doing as community champions, you start talking about it, you start reading, it just naturally throws up these questions and these conversations. So, and these are all the things that I'm really interested in. So for me, it's just like another thing that, I don't know, it's just like turning another page to a book, or it's just another road to go down, and a way to tie all this stuff together. So I just think it's just fascinating, and that's why I think it's a really good example to other places. It's more than just preserving a piece of land or turning a piece of land into something the community can use, help understand that land more, understand the story behind that land, and understand your story and how you're connected to that land and how you're connected to the people in the town around you. And there's potentially a lot of healing from those stories as well. And that's, again, one of the things I'm really interested in.
Such a good point, that, that healing, because that's sort of kind of a bit, you said it so much better. And it is about changing that mindset and changing that story. And sometimes we have to connect back to our past, and respect and understand that past, whilst we're in the present, to sort of move forward into the future. And that's what I think this project does really well. It knows what it's about. It knows its roots, but it absolutely is about the future as well. It's beautifully told how you sort of said that, sort of changing that.
It's about, for Oldham, it's about creating, not just Oldham, but wherever you live, you want to live there because you want to be there. It's like when you live somewhere that you don't want to be and you have a resentment about where you live, then that is not healthy, and it's just the negative ripples just pan out. So you want people to be happy and feel like they belong and want to be here. And I think that part of Oldham's reason it's not moved forward is because a lot of people don't want to be here. So we've got to try and create, I think that with the council, with the town centre and things like Northern Roots, if you can walk into a space like Northern Roots from your house, and so many people can because there's so many people who live just around it, or you can ride there on your bike, or you can jump on a bus and be there in 5-10 minutes and go, I'm glad I live here because this is great, I love it here. And this is where I can go to connect to nature and whatever, and then I can walk to the town centre. And it's like Mary Higgs, it's a vision, and not everybody has that kind of vision. But the people that do, if they can then connect that back to everybody else, Mary Higgs didn't turn the whole of Oldham into a garden suburb, but she got one garden suburb in there, and so it's the dreamers are important, aren't they?
They're always really important. We'd say that as creative people, all four of us around the table. It's really important to be able to have dreams and envisage new futures and the ways that things can be. And I think my reflection on the group of people that we have around the table with our community champions, you included, and I would say this for myself, all of us, and you alluded to it, we all need purpose. And I think people are inherently creative. And I think of some of the individual community champions, and I think these are incredibly bright, incredibly talented, creative people who just need an opportunity to be creative. And it's amazing seeing those individuals kind of flourish and grow in confidence. And also my other reflection about the community champions is the diversity. And you might not necessarily get those people meeting in Oldham if we hadn't brought them together. Do you think about that?
100%. Like one of the things that I love about this is I wouldn't be in a room like that doing that stuff if it wasn't for this, because I'd be in here or I'd be doing whatever I'm normally doing. And that was one of the appeals once I found out about it, that I'll be able to get involved in sessions that aren't run by me, that I can just participate in with people that I wouldn't normally spend time with necessarily, and that something will come out of it in the end. And so it's nice to just be able to just turn up and participate and get involved without having to sort of lead. When you're self-employed, you've got to make everything happen, haven't you? So it's like, for me, it's kind of nice just to turn up at that and then come away with ideas and inspiration and starting to get to know the people in the group. And learning as well, like seeing how you guys work. And it's just a brilliant opportunity. And to be able to do it and, get paid for your time and get involved. I'm just delighted to be involved. I really am. I think it's great. So it was great. Do you remember when we were during the interview? It was like there was so much excitement in the room, wasn't there, when we were talking? Like it was like, oh yeah, this is really good. And I'm like going away, I've got to wait till I get confirmation. But I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get one of these roles. So it just felt like a really good fit straight away. It's just nice being around people that want to do something positive and have that attitude that you were both saying about, are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem, and being part of the solution. And even if you don't understand how to solve the problem, just having a go at it anyway. Because nobody really knows what they're doing, do they? Everyone's just blagging it to some degree, aren't they?
We're all winging it.
We're all winging it a bit.
Yeah.
Took me ages to realise that.
Yeah.
No one's got it.
But you can see, you trust. We were talking about trust, and when you were talking about cooperation, trust is really important, isn't it? And you when you meet people to interview for roles and stuff like that, you just kind of, a lot of it's just based on your instincts as whether you can trust that person to just do what they said they're going to do.
But I'm kind of looking at Sarah, because it's that thing of, as a creative person, it's actually really nice not knowing and taking risks, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah. It's nice not knowing what's going to happen. Yeah. It opens to serendipity.
Yeah.
Which is that kind of fortuitous happenstance.
And things are better as a result, often, of kind of setting the structure, but then kind of just letting go. The four of us in the room could come up with lots of amazing ideas, but I can guarantee you that, with all the community champions, there will be far better ideas,
I think it's also
like cross-fertilisation and
letting things go, letting go as well, and letting things have their own life. As a creative as well is something that you do. So for myself, working visually, when I've made a piece of work, that's it. It's made. My kind of role within that has got, and then it goes out there, and it might go off to an exhibition, and someone else looks at it, and they have their own interpretation, and so letting something go and letting something be, and live its own life.
And I think also heritage for all of us around the table, but I think particularly for creative people, is such a kind of fertile, it's such an impetus, isn't it? So this whole incredible story of Mary Higgs, which you were talking about earlier on, it's such a gift, isn't it? To start a project with this kind of history in Oldham. Almost physical gifts, in that there are
a couple of pockets of land on the Northern Route site that were donated to the people of Oldham and left in trust for the use of the people of Oldham by a woman called Sarah Lees, who was a progressive suffragette and one of the co-founding members of the Beautiful Oldham Society with Mary Higgs. So that kind of history again repeating itself, that she left those pockets of land in trust to the people of Oldham, and we're now picking up that mantle, and Oldham, with Oldham Council giving that land to Northern Roots to manage to give it back again to and improve and make useful for the people of Oldham, after in lots of senses it had fallen into disuse.
Yeah. It's nice to know that, or to imagine that those people would be delighted at the impact of their work, of their donations, of their ideas, of their, that they have a legacy that is over 120 years in the making, and was probably forgotten for a little while, or not forgotten, but certainly, consigned to the history books and things like that. Now it's coming back to life. I think that's fantastic. What's really good as well is it's I guess all the mills, the capitalism, the lords of industry, very male kind of story, isn't it? This is a female-led story, and it's very different, and it's kind of like a counterbalance to the male side of it, So that, I don't know. It's a very much a female-led project at the minute as well. Why do you think as well there was one of the reasons I figured I was going to get the role was because I was a bloke, and you'd said you did not had any blokes so
we need blokes.
Are you finding that it's a more of a challenge to get men interested in this kind of thing? Is that something that you've experienced throughout the other types of community projects you do as well, and that kind of stuff?
I think it comes back to sort of, how this project has been built by the team at Northern Roots, how it's been really thought through. We want to pay our community champions as well. So when you set up that kind of structure, you value people. People have a role, though it's a paid role, almost like a job, but a lot of projects like this, and it's going through big changes, so these projects are changing, but they have sort of traditionally been set up to focus more on set up community groups or drop-in type situations maybe in the day. So already you're starting to sort of move away from certain communities because they just simply can't free up that kind of time they're working. They're not available in the day, So you may start to only draw in certain demographics. It might be retired women, for example, or something like that. So actually you do start to realise in projects like this and groups that there's missing people, and that's because the programmes aren't set up to accommodate that. So again, I think it goes back to Northern Roots, really thinking that through. How do we overcome this, and how do we make sure we value communities that come and grow these projects? We pay them and we set up a real structure, and that then brings in a much wider audience.
Yeah, I wouldn't really be able to justify doing this.
No.
But I can see the benefits of it, but I know at least, all right, it's not a great amount of money, but at least I know I'm able to send an invoice in at the end of the month and get something back for my time, which is fantastic. And even though there is this sort of shortfall, is more women than men, but the focus groups and things like that, there is that, okay, well, we need to make sure that we're reaching a proper cross-section of the community. So it's all been thought through that everybody will be consulted on the project.
Yeah. And it is working, because I know from projects I worked on before that actually we didn't see very many men.
I think we have to be very realistic about being in a cost of living crisis. The hyper-local communities around the Northern Roots site experience a lot of socio-economic deprivation. So it's the right thing to do to pay people for the time. And like you point out, Rebecca, that kind of gives people real value. So all very intentional. I also wanted to kind of go back to kind of Mary Higgs and that call to action we've talked about, Beautiful Oldham, why not? And thinking about history and thinking about, that's 1901 through the 19th century. We have got the Industrial Revolution that started a few centuries earlier. It puts Oldham on the map. So in the mid-19th century, Oldham is the epicentre of the cotton spinning industry globally. It's got the most amount of mills, biggest amount of production. It's connected to cotton coming from India, cotton coming from the United States. And that's what kind of blows Oldham up from being this kind of hamlet or town, small town on a hill, into being, a kind of proper town. But it's interesting that all those mills churning out all that smog and dirt you talked about, Sarah, has probably contributed, no doubt, to climate change. So it's very interesting that 125 years later, part of what Northern Roots is set up to do is to educate and to demonstrate that we can live differently, sustainably, we can utilise green energy, etc., etc. All of this stuff that's kind of coming online and is kind of entering more of the kind of mainstream consciousness. It's kind of very timely that we are sort of in essence sort of perpetuating Mary Higgs' legacy. And I'd never thought about that. Like, what would Mary Higgs herself think about Northern Roots? And I thought, that's a 10-minute radio play, isn't it?
Sue's going to play.
Sue is going to play Mary Higgs.
She'd probably be, trying to sort of channel her through mediums and things like, "Hey there, Mary. Hey there, Mary." So that'd be interesting.
I'm all for that.
Yeah. But I think that thing about climate change and pollution, I feel kind of like there's a responsibility to pay something, to try and pay something back, to try and recover some of that from places like this. It's not that it's our fault or anything, but it just seems like the right thing to do. Having been such a massive contributor to burning fossil fuels and destroying the environment in this place, and we can't do anything about the past, but we can do something about the future. So that just seems like a way of focusing what are we about. Well, this is what the town was about then, so let's flip it on its head and let's make this what the town's about now. I know I said the town, the whole of Greater Manchester as well, which is becoming the London of the North, isn't it, really? That's kind of what's happening with. So over the next 50 years or so, I think you're going to see a lot more wealth generated in places like Oldham and the surrounding towns, like you do in London, in this massive urban conurbation. It'd be nice if it was done in the right way, that wealth was generated in the right way, or in many of the right ways, rather than just in the sort of like the way it was done in the past, which was, let's be honest, terrible for the environment, terrible for the people who lived in the environment. It's pure exploitation. A handful of people got very, very rich, and that was it. So it's about learning from, again, like I said before, about getting a handle on history and heritage and looking at it and being honest about it and saying, well, we don't want to do that again, do we? That's not the way we want to do things now. We want to do things we want everybody to benefit from. Wealth generation, wealth creation. And we've all got to play our part. But it's very difficult, if you are living in a council house with no money, to kind of play your part. There are real barriers, aren't there?
You know, I mean, who can afford to put a solar array on their roof? Who can, you know? So I think we have to be very realistic about these things.
But by creating places like Northern Roots where people can come, get involved, learn, maybe that have their aspirations raised, you know, to want to get involved, have a community. Some of the, you know, social prescribing where people are maybe feeling very lonely or like helpless gives them a step up in that. It's just all these things. I just visualise this area of Northern Roots and like all the people around sort of coming in, you know, like and then leaving with taking a piece of it with them and then coming back. And that's what you want in it, that kind of people coming in and out of the place, the local people. I think it's great that we create a place where lots of people visit and spend their money and it's good for the local economy. But if local people aren't at the heart of it, then it won't really have worked, will it? Because that's the idea, isn't it, behind it?
Absolutely. That's exactly my vision. And I think we're already starting to see that at a very small level of like different groups of people. Like we had a wonderful Christmas party at Northern Roots just for Christmas. And I don't know, 50 or 60 people from very different parts of the project, you know, volunteers who live locally, community champions, our trustees, you know, people that we've worked with. And it was just such a lovely feeling. I mean, you were there. We were all there. I came away feeling my heart felt very warm because that is the vision. It's a place where people can kind of come together, create things, do things, see things, be inspired. But actually, it's about connection. I think we all need connection and purpose. And I think particularly, I was going to say earlier, post-pandemic, a lot of people rediscovered green spaces and the importance of it for kind of health and well-being and connection. So yeah, it's a really interesting time. Interesting that the Northern Roots project has happened now.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Watch this space. ... Next time on My Northern Roots.
I was born July 1952 in Oldham, in not such a well-to-do area, I must say, but happy memories of childhood when you could play out on the streets without any kind of worry. If you did something wrong, maybe one of the local bobbers would just prick your ear and take you home. Then you get another one off your dad.
The Beautiful Oldham Why Not project is a Northern Roots project funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. If you'd like to learn more about Northern Roots, please visit northern-roots.uk. This podcast has been hosted, recorded, edited and produced by Matt Dean of QPod, Oldham's only dedicated podcast production company. For more info, please visit kupod.co.uk.